Hello everyone, welcome to another Deck Tech. This is BBD with
Todd Anderson, a.k.a. Ted Gunderson.
Ted Gunderson here today, reporting live on Blue-White, or White-Blue. Basically, very similar to a deck that Brad played against me in a video a couple weeks ago. Also very similar to various decks that I've been playing throughout the entirety of Theros Standard.
Yeah.
I always come back to decks like this at least once just to try them out.
Yeah, you got old Bremasty.
Yeah, nasty Bremasty. I love me some Precinct Captain and Brimaz with Spear of Heliod. I can't get away from that combo, so I'm back to trying it out. And I actually think that it's actually really good thanks to a couple of new cards. One of them is a Johnny Steadfast.
Yeah, that guy, I don't even know how to describe him. Like, when I first saw him spoiled, I had to think about it for a minute. I had to be like, all right, so this guy plays very similarly to Johnny Goldmane, the original one. Now, after I saw him spoiled, I was like, all right, now I just need a bunch of token producers. You know, I want more Spectral Procession type cards, more Raise the Alarm type cards, and lo and behold, they spoiled Raise the Alarm like immediately after, as well as a 6-mana Spectral Procession, but that card's not playable. So
yeah. So there's Raise the Alarm to go with it, and like Todd said, the -2 is basically very similar to Goldmane's -1. It's a little bit worse, actually. Yeah. But not significantly worse. But the +1 is much better than Goldmane's +1. Yeah. Especially with Brimaz. It's very good with Brimaz. And like Lee of Sky Knight and things like that. It's just a great way to punch through damage, gain some life, and actually push towards his ultimate too.
Yeah, and you also get to protect him as well when you give your guy Vigilance that doesn't normally have it.
Yes.
Yeah, making your guy like super hard to block, like it's going to be really tough for them to like try to win a race against you because you're able to attack them for extra point of damage as well as gain a bunch of life, and it's really tough for them to block. So
yeah, and his ultimate's actually really strong as well. It's very hard to lose to a lot of decks once you've ultimated a Johnny because every point of damage they deal to you is reduced to 1, regardless of the source. Like Aetherling hitting you for 1.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's not great against Elspeth, but it's fantastic against almost every other card in the format, his ultimate, that is. And one thing I do want to point out is that if the only way to get to the ultimate is to +1 him enough so that he gets to 7, but if you're +1ing him a bunch, you're going to be pumping, you know, your Soldier of the Pantheons, you're going to be pumping your Lee of Sky Knights, your Precinct Captains, and you're just going to gain a ton of life. So that means they're going to have to hit you with probably somewhere between 20 and 30 like individual points of damage sources to kill you if you get to ultimate him. And honestly, that ability might end up being better than the gain 100 life from the Mentor of Heroes. Yeah. Simply because, like, you know, when someone's trying to kill you from 100 life, it's usually going to be pack rats. It's usually going to be like ultimating an Elspeth. But now they're just going to literally have to hit you 30 different times or whatever.
Yeah. It actually could potentially gain you more life than Mentor's ultimate.
Hilarious.
And another nice thing about Johnny is you can go like a Johnny -2, and then next turn -2 again, play a second of Johnny -2 again. Yeah. And then your guys are just insanely massive, and you have all these token producers from Brimaz and Raise the Alarm and things, and Precinct Captain, so you have a lot of guys to do that with. And the rest of the deck is basically built around that core. Like we have 2 Spears, 2 Dictates. We're just all in on pumping our guys. And making, like, I want Brimaz to attack through Polukranos. That is the goal of this deck, is Brimaz to be big enough to attack through Polukranos.
Yeah, I think that could happen. I do want to point out that the Brave the Elements seem like they could be pretty good in a number of matchups. Yeah. I feel like some of your bad matchups are going to be ones where your opponent actually outfloods the board. Yes. Particularly in this matchup we're going to be playing today, where I'm playing mono green, and like a Singleton Brave the Elements after doing like 2 Johnny activations and playing a Spear, Brave the Elements is going to kill me.
Yeah, exactly. Like Brave the Elements is actually one of the cards that in previous iterations of this deck that I should have been playing that I wasn't, because a lot of times you get into situations where you take your opponent down to 8 life and then Master of Waves comes down, and then like the board stalls out and they eventually win with Thassa or something. Yeah. It's really frustrating, but if you have a Brave the Elements, you can just kill them through all their guys, so that's pretty awesome. I also like Afara a lot with Raise the Alarm because you can make creatures on their turn and draw a card in your upkeep.
Yeah, not to mention just anything that can make creatures on your opponent's turn.
Brimaz can
awesome.
sometimes do that as well.
Yeah, like if they ever attack, you get to block make a guy. But yeah, having Raise the Alarm so you can potentially draw 2 cards in a single turn cycle is pretty awesome.
And I guess the last thing I want to mention is the sweetness between Dictate of Heliod and Mutavault, where you can, like, so say you're playing against a control deck, you can put like 1 threat in play, like a single Brimaz. And then once they like Supreme Verdict that, you can be like, all right, flash in Dictate of Heliod, untap, hit you for 8 with my 2 Mutavolts.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
So there's a lot of this deck can do a surprising amount of damage despite not having a lot of creatures, and it has a lot of reach with cards like Brave the Elements and Ajani. So I'm actually pretty excited. I think this deck could be really good, and I'm excited to give it a shot. But let's look at the sideboard right now.
Yep.
All right, so we have a singleton Imposing Sovereign and a singleton Keening Apparition. Imposing Sovereign is an interesting number, but it's very good against mono blue, I've found. Especially when they try to stabilize with Master of Waves. You get a free attack before they get to untap their guys.
This card actually, I've heard a lot of talk from Brad about this card actually, where in theory it is really, 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 really bad in multiples.
Yep.
But if you draw 1 and you're on the play, it's very good.
Yeah.
So I guess like just hoping you draw it in your opener if you side into it while you're on the play, it's awesome. But every other point in the game, it's usually pretty bad. Like too slow, or if it doesn't really do anything if you have a second one. So.
And then Keening Apparition, just pretty good in the format right now.
Kills enchantments.
It does. It destroys enchantments. But it's also a dude that bashes with like spears and stuff pretty well.
Yeah.
3 negates. Those are for like the control decks, but also like a lot of like the Planeswalker heavy decks. Negate's pretty good in those matchups too.
I'm excited to see if anyone tries out a Garruk Apex Predator deck, and just like a slow, grindy black-green deck with a lot of removal, a lot of Planeswalkers, like maybe even Vraska on 5, and new old Liliana Vest coming back. But yeah, Negate is gonna have a lot of targets. Yep. Guarantee you that.
We have yet another Brave the Elements for like mono blue, mono green, decks like that.
It's also not bad against mono black. They have a lot of spot removal, and being able to just like play Brimaz on 4 and have Brave is pretty good.
It's a little weak to Devour, but it's good against like the rest of their cards.
Yeah, I would hope that not a lot of people still play Devour, but I don't know.
My hatred of Thassa is well known. 2 Deicides.
Yep.
A couple more Banishing Lights for matchups where we want more D-Spheres. A couple Celestial Flares. Those are really good against like Blood Baron of Vizkopa, Stormbreath Dragon, cards that are otherwise issues for this deck.
Yeah.
And then 3 Supreme Verdicts, which may seem out of place, but our deck actually doesn't have that many real creatures. So there are going to be a lot of matchups where we can board into Verdict and side out some of our guys, like maybe Soldier of the Pantheon if he's not very good or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this matchup today, like this card's going to be MVP after board.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my goal, is to flood the board with guys. So having Supreme Verdict on backup, like some people say that it's kind of a non-bow when you play Verdict or Wrath of God and creature-based decks, but like there are a lot of decks that can transform into a different style of deck after game 1, and having access to a Wrath effect, you just sandbag all your stuff. You use your D-Spheres on their Planeswalkers, then you Supreme Verdict all the rest of their guys away. So
yeah, and we also have like Afara, which doesn't die to Supreme Verdict, and a number of cards that stay in play. So we have 4 Mutavaults as well. So I think Verdict is actually kind of good in this deck, even though it's a little bit of an oddball to play Verdict in a creature deck.
Yep.
But yep, I think this deck's sweet. So let's get to battling and see if that's actually true.